Oh, God. Oh, wow.
All right. Fantastic. Well, good evening. Welcome to the Decades Roundup. This is the 70s, 80s, and 90s version. I am Georgina Brackett, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Cedric Newbern, class of 93. And we just want to welcome everyone to this homecoming roundup as we celebrate these particular decades. We have got some amazing panelists this evening, tonight, and I want each of them to introduce themselves. Tell us your class again, even though it's posted because it's important. What you're doing now and where you live, just to get us started off. And we're going to start with Mr. Kevin Mays.
Hey, folks. Kevin Mays, class of 86. I'm currently living in Bowling Green. Been here for about 18 years now, working as controller of Owl's Head Alloys. Fun little fact about my time at Western, I got an opportunity to spend the night in the Van Meter Auditorium as part of the class of Linwood Montel's spiritual folklore class, looking for ghosts. We spent the entire night there, the class, but didn't see any ghosts, but there may have been some spirits involved.
No doubt. No doubt.
Nice.
Mr. Keith Mcgregory.
Yeah, hi, I'm Keith Mcgregory, class of 1987. I live here in Chicago, been here pretty much after I left Western. Spent some time in New York City, background financial industry, and also doing digital advertising sales right now. And fun fact, I am a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity and also with Cedric as well. I didn't pledge Cedric, but we're members of the same fraternity.
Fantastic. Thank you, Keith. And Mr. Todd Cheever, Dr. Todd Cheever, I should say.
Hey, thanks, Georgina. Good to be here with everybody. This is really exciting. So my 4 years, I graduated in 1987 like Keith, and 4 of the best years of my life spent on the Hill and at Western, 83 to 87. I was pre-med, so I was one of those geeks that was up at the Ogden College of Science studying constantly and at the Helm Library. My fun fact was that I swam for Coach Powell my freshman year, but I was way out of my league, so I stopped swimming and devoted more time to studying. I went to medical school at the university located in Lexington. I'll leave it at that. And I moved back to Bowling Green 5 years ago because I have to say UK has a partnership with WKU, and we have a medical school located right next to campus. And so excited to be back in Bowling Green and part of WKU. Go Tops.
Hey, thanks, Todd. Glad you're here. And you know, one celebrity that's on the screen right now is Mr. Reginald Glass, class of 73. So, Mr. Glass, tell us a little bit about yourself and a good memory from WKU.
Apparently, I'm the old guy on the call here. Yeah, I graduated in 73. I was a mass comm major, and that was an era when a lot of things were going on campuses across the country. It was during the Vietnam War, so there were a lot of students who were concerned about getting drafted. If their grades weren't high enough, and also the period when they changed the draft to a lottery. And I remember distinctly that I was thrilled to get a high number. And one of the guys on my floor at Poland Hall got a very low number, like a 17 or something. And the next morning when we woke up, his room was empty. He was gone. So we never found out what happened to him. But we were the first group of folks that lived in Poland Hall after it was built and fully open. So there were a lot of pranks in Poland. Guys like to drop M80s and cherry bombs down the trash chute, and scared the heck out of everybody. I can remember somebody dropped a bunch of M80s down the trash chute, and my roommate was in the shower, and he came running out of there. I mean, he was terrified. He thought a bomb had gone off. But
No doubt.
yeah, it was a fun time, but it was a radical time, and probably the most interesting thing on our first night on campus, my roommate decided to go downtown to one of the clubs, and the next morning he wasn't in the room, and his dad called and said, "Can I speak to John?" And I'm like, I had no idea where he was in the morning when we were supposed to be getting ready to go to class. So I made up some kind of fake story that he was already gone to breakfast, because everybody knew I was a late sleeper. And before I knew it, there was a knock at the door, and it was his father. He had driven all the way down from Louisville. It had to be breakneck speed. And he had found out that my roommate and several other guys were in jail.
Oh.
Yeah. Apparently a fight had broken out, and the folks, the African Americans that lived downtown, weren't too keen on us campus guys coming down poaching on their women. So they had all jumped on Jan Waddell's TR6 or something. It was a two-seater sports car, and they were coming back up the hill, and the police stopped them and arrested them all. So they got arrested for running away from trouble.
Wow.
Oh, gee.
All
Sounds
good
like
memories,
things didn't
Virgil.
change much.
Yeah.
Those stories sound familiar to the 90s for me.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Well, Georgina, we want to hear about you. Tell us.
Well, one of the things I remember most is when I got there, I was 17 years old as a freshman in '83. And I grew up with parents and grandparents in the same house. So I had never had to do laundry. And I went down to the laundromat under the police department there, under the parking structure. And I was with part of the football team who were also doing their laundry. And I don't know what happened, but we had about 4 washing machines and about 1 foot of soap suds deep on the floor after it was all said and done. So then we all just started sliding in it and running around in it, and it was complete chaos. but I remember going to the football game that next Saturday during the day because we did not have lights at the stadium to have a night football game. And I remember trying to find those football players that I had done laundry with just to see if, they would still speak to me that next day. And they did. And I commented on how clean their uniforms were, but obviously they weren't cleaning their uniforms. But anyway, that's a fond memory for me. Cedric, what do you remember?
Oh my goodness. Like you, I showed up on the Hill at age 17 because I'm a September baby. So showed up in the fall of 1989. And the biggest thing I remember, aside from meeting a bunch of people, finding out how to correctly pronounce Louisville, because in Nashville, we pronounced it Louisville. So that was correct. But what really struck me as odd was all these people kept saying, Cedric, you got to go to night class with me. And I'm like, no, I'm taking a full load as it is. I have no interest in going to night class with you. And they're like, no, you got to go. It's a lot of fun. And little did I know that night class was actually the club on campus. Some of the best Thursday nights of my life, because again, back then it was very much a suitcase campus. And so you get all your partying done on Thursday, you'd pack your car up Friday morning on your way to class. And then of course, when it was time to get out of class, you headed back either to Louisville or Nashville. So night class was it for me. I love night class and West Hall Cellar, but we'll talk about that later.
Good deal. One of the things we want to hit upon while we have this wonderful panel present this evening is, the fun stuff, but also the memories that you have around the city of Bowling Green, because as we all know and have felt through the years, Bowling Green wants to be a large city, but it still has that small town feel. And I remember, for instance, walking from campus to downtown to grab a bite to eat, or to go over to even Wishy-Washy at some point in time when I had wheels to drop off laundry as well. So if you all could just talk a little bit about some of the other memories that you have in and around campus.
Yeah, well, let me go ahead and start with that. That I remember I was a young boy from E-Town, and we were very, rural at that time. So Bowling Green was a big city. And so for the opportunity to be in a big town, to go be on campus and do, like you were saying, walk downtown and see some of the sights was a big deal for me. But one of the things I remember most fondly is the opportunity to go out to Sally's Rock. We'd drive out to the country there, overlook the river, go up to the rock. And those are just little things that, we didn't get to do in tiny little E-Town.
Good deal. Dr. Cheever, do you recall any place, points, special connections in and around BG?
So I lived on campus all 4 years and didn't have a car for a couple of the years. But funny story, my freshman year, two women that I went to high school with who came to Western with me, it was a Saturday, and I convinced them that it would be easy to walk from campus to the mall, because I had this map. I don't know if you remember this. It was in the 80s, but it was all the sites in Bowling Green, but it was kind of cartoonish. But on this map, it looked like it was 2 blocks away. And we walked out Small House Road. And I mean, of course, nothing was developed. And I don't know. And we walked for hours. And they kept saying, it's 2 blocks away. I said, well, it looked 2 blocks away on the map my uncle gave me, who was a Hilltopper. So 2 hours later, we get to the mall and stayed in the food court and ate as long as we could, because we knew we had a 2-hour walk back home. I don't know why we didn't take a taxi or something, but we must not have had enough money. Must have blown it all on the food court. So that was a fun fall memory in freshman year, walking all the way out to the mall.
Mr. Glass, do you have any memories of in and around Bowling Green?
Several, actually. There were several key places. State Street Baptist Church was one of them. the upperclassmen were very good about being mentors to the freshmen, and they became like parents. So no matter how late we had been out partying, they made sure we were up and ready to go to church. And they took us to State Street Baptist Church, where Alice Gatewood Waddell's brother-in-law was the pastor then. And after church, they took us to a little place on the bypass called Mary's Eat Shop.
Uh-huh.
And you could get more food than you could eat for like $1.25 at that time. Meat, mashed potatoes piled up, and a vegetable. And if you got a dessert, it was $2.25, and iced tea. And I thought I was in heaven. So that became a habit for us. We had to go to State Street and then to Mary's, and Mary was having a hard time finding help, so she thought about closing on Sundays, and we said, no, you can't do that. So one of my buddies, who happened to be a football player, we decided we were going to go to work for Mary's on Sundays, and we were washing dishes, bussing tables, mashing potatoes, and all the while eating. And I mean, and we always finished the day with a few coins in our pocket and full stomachs. And then we had to make it back up the hill somehow or another, because neither one of us had a car at that time. And the other thing I enjoyed was I like riding the train. My grandfather had worked for the L&N Railroad. And when I was a little kid, everywhere we went, we took the train. Well, I don't know if the taxi service was as bad as it was back then for you guys, but the taxis would go around and pick up a bunch of people until they had a full car. And I was trying to get back home. There were a couple of us trying to get back home and ride the train, because I liked apple pie a la mode at that time. And the dining car had the best apple pie a la mode. So by the time the taxi picked up all these people and dropped us off at the train station, the train had pulled off, and we ran in the train station, and we were just really flabbergasted that we couldn't get to Louisville. And to our amazement, the station master radioed the train, which was already crossing the bridge, and they stopped the train and backed up to pick us up.
Wow.
I could not believe that. That was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. So we felt very special. So those are, some great memories I have of the city of Bowling Green, and it wasn't quite as developed as it is now. In fact, Howard Bailey, after I graduated, I stayed away for I worked at Chrysler Air Temp, which is now the Corvette plant, for about a year, and then I went back to Louisville. And Howard Bailey called me and asked me to come speak to a group of students. And I'd been gone for 10 years. I hadn't been back. And he said, we got a hotel room for you and all that. And I said, well, great. And he was giving me directions to the hotel. I said, Howard, there's nothing out there but a field. Where you got me staying, with a bunch of cows or what? He started laughing. You haven't been here in a while. So when I rode into Bowling Green, I was amazed that it had grown as much as it had in 10 years. So, when I was in Bowling Green, originally I used to call it Bowling Green, the growing pity. Well, it had grown into Bowling Green, the young city. So
well, I see.
I just love Bowling Green. I really do.
Mr. Glass, you got a comment from a Mike Inman, who says it's great to see you after all of these years. So,
Yep, I'm still,
Mike Inman, government history major, 1975.
yeah.
And we failed to mention early on that if you comment, we're actually able to see it. Unfortunately, we're not able to comment back as individual panelists, but we've got somebody monitoring those comments. So if you got a question, if you got a funny story to share, please do so in the chat feature there on the comments. And my goodness, now who is that, Reggie?
I bet that is Mr. Glass himself.
Is that Mr.
Yes,
Glass?
it is. Back when I had
love
hair.
I love it.
That was the Delta's most outstanding Black Greek contest, which I won. It was the first one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Handsome
And I don't
then
know.
and handsome now.
Absolutely.
Reggie, I hadn't thought about Mary's in forever. That really brings back some great memories.
And State Street Baptist Church. Absolutely. Now, and I don't know if everyone saw the video early on, but when we first started this, there was a video that showed a lot of pictures, and there were more then and now pictures, because we know that, as Reggie just explained, when he left after 10 years, for all of us, for many of us, I moved away for about 15 years and came back to visit for homecoming for our fraternity reunion. And I was lost even walking around campus because so many things have changed.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll be able to see that video at the beginning of this, because this stream will be shared and saved for you to look at later on. So you can see that really cool video of things that were back in the day versus now. So those of us with more hair than we have today and all that good stuff and less gray.
Cedric, when we moved back to Bowling Green, I saw a sign advertising Lost River Cave, and I thought, what in the world are they advertising this place? It used to be a dump that we'd sneak down to have fraternity parties in.
Yeah.
And now it's a huge tourism spot.
It's like on the map for Bowling Green. It's things to do. Yeah, I can tell you, my wife and I drove down with our son from Chicago, and we were just blown away. I mean, not to mention, you can't cut across campus anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you know that, but when I was at WKU, one of my many jobs was Domino's pizza delivery guy. And so I used to zip through campus and deliver pizzas to the dorms. But now, you know, if you're not too careful, you can end up on a one-way street or a dead end and not get across the campus. So
yeah, it's amazing the growth of the, you know, the campus, the school, right in that same area that you're talking about. Yeah, it's just amazing. It's some of the buildings that were there when we were there. Just it's so it's such a transition just to look at it and go, wow. You know, the school was beautiful back then, but it's even more now. You know, with the modernization of it. So
yeah, I thought when they built Pierce Ford Tower, that was a big thing because they used a helicopter to build that thing.
Huh.
Yeah, and at one point, wasn't it? It might still be the tallest building in Bowling Green.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first year they couldn't fill it.
Now, did any of you have the opportunity to slide down the banister at Duck? Because I always wanted to do that, but I was fearful. But I would see people slide down that banister.
Never tried it.
Spiral staircase.
Yeah.
Never tried it. Thought about it, but never tried it.
Yep, I did it. I also slid down the hill too.
Yeah.
In the snow?
Yeah, well, it was actually, we had an ice storm.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time they called off classes after I'd already gone up the hill and got to the top of the hill and Cherry Hall, and they put up a sign just as I was about to open the door, classes canceled. And the reason they canceled classes, one of the older faculty members fell and broke his I can't remember if it was leg or hip or something.
Oh man!
So I had to turn around, you know, Cherry Hall to Poland. I'm going back down the hill, and when I got to the bottom of the steps by the old football stadium, I slipped and slid all the way down to the front of Bates Runner from there. You're talking about somebody mad.
Well, that's one thing that hasn't changed about the school is that that hill, right? You still have to walk.
No, you can take a bus now if you want.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
cheating.
You don't have to walk, but the hill is still there if you want to walk it.
Yeah,
it's
still,
I
still
remember
rough.
why we were in such good shape back then. I mean, walking up and down that campus was a
exactly
workout every single day. Maybe sometimes multiple times a day, depending on how much you had to, go back and forth.
Did any of you ever strategically plan your schedule on how you had to traverse the hill and when you needed to traverse the hill to get from class to class?
Yep.
A couple times.
Learned that very early. And I
Right.
also
Did anyone
figured
do
out
an
how
8
to
o'clock?
create a four-day weekend too.
Yep.
Right. Exactly.
Did anyone do that 8 a.m. in Thompson or at the very top of or Cherry Hall?
Yes.
I didn't know any better.
Yeah, absolutely. It was.
And registering with paper and our
Yes.
At Weatherby.
newspaper and our bubble in Scantron-y little things and
I
all
remember.
that. That was always fun. I did want to share a comment that Tim Ray made. He said he moved away after he graduated in 1987, but he never left WKU.
Yeah.
I thought that was a awesome statement. So y'all might kind of.
I had graduated, and when I graduated, I wound up moving away, and I was living in Louisville when I got a call from a bank asking me if I'd want to come work for them, and I really didn't have any interest. I was enjoying where I was at, but the guy said one thing that convinced me. He says, "Well, the job's in Bowling Green." I'm like, "I'm yours."
Kevin, I agree with you. I was working in Elizabethtown and had an opportunity to do an interview for Med Center Health. And I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to go back to campus and be closer to campus and maybe even kick up a little teaching gig on the faculty side. So have had the pleasure to work for Med Center Health for 21 years now and have taught at WKU for that many years now as a part-time faculty. So yes, it does have its boost to come back home because I really do feel like WKU is a part of home for sure.
Yep.
Well, like Georgina and Kevin, I was in Chicago and got a little homesick after selling our business and thought, well, it's probably time to move back home, be closer with our family. Our parents are getting older. And one of the first calls I made was to my good friend, Jeff Katz at WKU. And I said, hey, Jeff, if there's anything that you know of, please let me know because I'd love to come back. I'm moving back to the area and I want to be close to Bowling Green. And lo and behold, I ended up back in Nashville. And literally 2 years later, I'm now full-time faculty at WKU. So, but again, it's a different world walking in the Grice Hall now, walking into the business school as a professor as compared to when I was running the Grice Hall because I was late for class. It is definitely a different world and perspective, but it's a lot of fun truly to see how the campus has grown, how the university has continued to just thrive. And again, to Tim's point, like I don't know anyone that left Western and truly left Western because Western's such a big part of all of us. So,
yep.
I think another thing to highlight with this amazing group of folks on this screen and is that everyone is part of the Alumni Association and are on the National Board of Directors for the Alumni Association. So I think the service that what WKU gave to us back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we've all been very fortunate and now are able to give back to the WKU alumni community, as well as making sure our students have that wonderful educational opportunity and then see the value in giving back futuristically as alumni.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a pleasure to serve. I mean, it's it's a way to stay connected, but also a way to, give back to the students that's there and also the alumni that's, out there and just sharing information and trying to get them engaged with the university is phenomenal.
Well, now it's time, I guess, for a shameless plug for the Alumni Association, because we're always excited to bring new alumni in. And again, the relationships that and I saw someone, the association said WKU is all about connections. And I'm sure that each and every panelist would agree that the relationships and the connections that we've made over the years. Reggie Glass talked about Howard Bailey. Howard Bailey is more like an uncle, surrogate dad to me and our fraternity brothers, and just the relationships that were established at Western mean a lot. And as an alumni member, again, you stay plugged in. It's not just about someone asking you for money. It's about how can you give back to the WKU community, and can you get involved in working with the students? And I can tell you firsthand, these students run circles around me when I was in college. Like these students, I'm teaching entrepreneurship classes, and I'm blown away at the level of intelligence and engagement and just the dedication and creativity that these students have. It blows my mind. So if you're looking to feel young again, make sure that you figure out some way that you can get involved in working with students on WKU's campus, because there's a lot of folks out there that would love mentoring. And I'm going to give Martha a shout out, Martha Seals. I know she's been in the chat, and I know the great work that she's doing over at ISEC as well. These students could use us as mentors and continue to stay involved. So my shameless plug, absolutely.
No, not shameless at all. And it's pretty exciting. We're doing this event tonight. There's another event tomorrow night for those decades of those young people that we're not even going to refer to, because the 70s and 80s and 90s is where it was happening. That's where it was really at. The best music, best everything going on campus. But this is homecoming week, and we do have a couple of years worth of students that have not had that homecoming experience due to the pandemic. So one of the things we're wanting to do this week, and especially this weekend, is recognize that class of 2021 that was not able to even be on campus for the most part of the year, to be able to know what it feels like to be on South Lawn, go to your college's tent and see alumni, see your professors, see friends, maybe have a toast or a meal, enjoy the football game. How about that band? Here's a plug for the WKU band, and enjoy those events. And there's lots of events that are coming up the rest of this week. We have another Decades event tomorrow night. We also have the chili cheese luncheon on Thursday. And then we have the Hall of the Distinguished Alumni on Friday at noon. And then Friday evening is the parade, as well as Big Red's Roar up at the Colonnade area. And then Saturday, of course, is South Lawn fun, wild, wild west, all day until the game begins. And hopefully we're going to get a topper win with that football game, coming off the momentum from this past Saturday's win for the Toppers. But just thinking about that, I want to throw it around a little bit to sports. If there are any particular sports events or coaches or players that you recall during the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and I'll just throw this out. I was in my freshman English class with Clemette Lavette Haskins. Mm-hmm. She was a good student, but even a better ball player, as some of you may recall. And I always just would stare at her and I always, when I would get around the football players or the basketball players, was just in awe of their size, their height, their just physique. But really enjoyed being around those that particular decade and those teams and coaching staff. So if anybody else has a memorable sports coach or a player that you recall.
Oh yeah. Speaking of Clemette, yeah, I was there too with Clemette. I mean, classmates. But her dad, as you guys
Yep.
know, was the
Yep.
men's basketball coach,
Yep.
Clem Haskin, and he obviously was a all-star player for WKU, made it to the NBA, and back then, Western Kentucky had some outstanding teams. I mean, they made it to they were ranked as high as 8th, I think, at one point when we were there, and they had quite a few players make it to the NBA. So outstanding basketball, and I think Clement they made it to the Final Four. The girls' basketball team did that in that era. If
That's
I'm not
correct.
mistaken. Yeah, they were really good. Yeah, they were really good. They could have won it all. I mean, they really could have that year. And she was All-American, I think. Lily Mason.
Yeah.
It's just All-American. They had some great teams, and so did the men. They did too. So I remember that. Those were some great years in sports for the school.
Yeah. We had some guys on the basketball team, guys like Jim McDaniels,
Oh,
Clarence Glover, Rex Bailey, and they kind of were the anchors of a team that in the NCAA regionals got paired up with UK. And of course, Coach Rupp did not want to play another Kentucky school, that was beneath them. And so we ended up in the same bracket and ended up playing one another. And we found out why Coach Rupp didn't want to play any Kentucky teams, because we beat the snot out of them. I mean, you're talking about a campus-wide party. When that happened.
So you beat University of Kentucky back then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Coached
that was a big deal.
Adolph Rupp.
That was a big deal.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was, I'm trying to think, who was the coach then? Geez. I can't remember who the coach was. But yeah, that was a phenomenal game.
And I think we've beat them one time since then, Reggie, because I've still got the T-shirt that say these are the facts, and it has the WKU score and the University of Kentucky score. So I'm never going to let go of that T-shirt.
I love it.
I wouldn't either.
And I can tell you from traveling, as when people ask me where did I go to school, I say Western Kentucky WKU, and it's almost a resounding Hilltoppers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So many people know us thanks to the basketball program being so successful, both men and women, over the years. I literally have been in DC and Chicago both, and I'd say that, and they always point out the Hilltopper, the basketball teams, and we can't forget Big Red. They always ask me, what in the world is that thing? And I have to tell them it's a hill. We're Hilltoppers, but definitely recognizable because we've got one of the most famous mascots and such an incredible team.
Yeah.
And hey, we can't let the 80s go by without mentioning Jimmy Vikes. I mean, my
That's
goodness.
right. Yes.
What a coach.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, you mean
Absolutely.
for the girl, for the women basketball team.
And actually, in the early 70s, we had a world-class track team too.
Yeah.
With, Nick Rose from
Yes.
England.
Yes.
Hector Ortez.
Was Swag on that?
Swag Hartel, who has a shoe store here in Louisville.
Right.
And let's see, one of
Joe
my fraternity
Tinius.
brothers, Joe Ellison, was a shot put thrower. And there were several others, but they were world class.
Yeah. I wrote for the Talisman yearbook when I was at Western. I know students today don't know what a yearbook is because it's all digital, but I wrote for the yearbook and I covered swimming because I'd been a swimmer, and I covered track and field. So a lot of these amazing runners I got to interview and follow their careers. They were just, outstanding.
But doesn't Western have a Olympian swimmer?
We did. So I was on the team. You're actually right. I was going to say, again, shout out to Coach Bill Powell. It's one of the most winning swim coaches in the history of the United States. But on our swim team, when I was there, again, I was the slowest person in the pool, but that was okay. Swam with Steve Crocker. He went to 2 Olympic trials and finished 3rd. And only the top 2 got to go to the Olympics. So he missed the Olympics twice by like 100th or 1,000th of a second. But just the nicest guy in the whole world.
Wow. And not in the 80s, though, but Claire Donahue. She's a fantastic.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking about. Yeah. She won the gold, didn't she?
She did.
Did she win the gold medal?
Yes. Yeah. And she's a social work major by trade.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Lots of history, lots of winning at Western. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tremendous athletics. Well, I'm going to do a shameless plug, too. The Society of African American Alumni has a bourbon tasting on Thursday night. It is a virtual event. This year, we're doing it with, who are we doing it with, Laura?
I think you've been having some. Heaven Hill.
Yeah, Heaven Hill.
Heaven Hill and Bernie Lubbers.
Yep. Bernie, some of you may remember Bernie Lubbers as a comedian. He is now a brand ambassador for Heaven Hill. Huh. And we will be on what platform we're using this time?
We're using Zoom.
Zoom.
And once folks register, which is alumni.wku.edu/SAA Heaven Hill, and I'll put that in the chat. They will receive a confirmation email with the Zoom link, the passcode, and the ingredients that they need to purchase if they would like to taste along with Bernie and everyone.
Yeah. Bernie's a great guy, very knowledgeable, and it should be a fun evening. So it's at 7 o'clock Central Time and 8 o'clock Eastern for us Easterners. And it's last year we had a great time. People really had fun learning about bourbon and tasting. And afterwards we had a nice chat with everybody, and people were catching up, folks that hadn't seen each other in a while. So it's a great event, and the tickets benefit the scholarship fund of the society. And right now we have 2 scholarship students on campus, and it's a four-year scholarship. So we would love to have you join us.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Well, I will shamelessly plug one of the things that we work on through the engagement committee is looking for ways that we can engage alumni all around the world, because we recognize that not everyone can make it back to Bowling Green for homecoming or just for any other occasion. So we've tried to come up with a variety of things like this event tonight. We've got the virtual bourbon tasting. We've tried to play off of some of those, because we recognize that, again, for those that are too far to travel back, we still want to get connected. We still want to stay engaged. So again, as you think of ideas like the bourbon tasting that the society is having, please don't hesitate to shoot that to our folks in the alumni office, because we love to again share. We've got groups around the country that get together and watch football games together. Again, we're trying to figure out all these things. And there we go. The homecoming parade will be live streamed, which we thought last year was just a dream as we were talking about it. Again, pandemic shut everything down, but the fact that it's going to be live streamed this year is again incredible. So just excited to engage alumni in unique ways, leveraging the technology that we have. So, and I've already got my ticket, Reggie.
Great. Look forward to seeing you. That the pandemic has probably, the positive side of the pandemic is that it's caused us to be more creative in how we reach people. And I think what we didn't realize about this format and the other formats that we use is that we can reach a lot more people than we could before, because we shrunk the world down to a computer screen size.
Yeah.
And that's really great, to be able to see folks wherever they are that we don't normally get to see. I mean, I miss seeing folks in person for sure, but it's just amazing that how well Americans in general have dealt with this. Some folks are going off the rails, but there's been some real positives in this whole thing. I think a lot of students were negatively impacted by it because sometimes high school and college years are the time that students make social connections, and being isolated and not being able to be on campus or in a school building just puts a damper on their social and emotional growth. I noticed that when we went back to school back in the spring, I replaced a legendary coach in Jefferson County who had won 5 championships, who died of COVID, and all his classes were freshmen. And I was trying to forge ahead with the curriculum, and 2 weeks in, it hit me that these kids were not acting like freshman high school students. And the reason was they had not been in the school building and they were in classes that they did not know each other. So
And
I
Reggie,
had
you're
to,
right.
Yeah.
That same thing happened, that same phenomenon at WKU, when as faculty, we all had to pivot quickly with little to no warning and take everything virtual. And there were so many students that didn't even have opportunity to finish out a job. Some students didn't have a place to go home to. So it's been catastrophic on lots of different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter was in the class of 2020, and it was quite the adjustment when everything just shut down and she had to move home.
Yeah,
Exactly.
same here. My daughter was a senior in college, and she, everything stopped, and so they had the celebration this year for that senior class. But it was just unbelievable.
And that's more of a reason for us to get engaged with students because they have been traumatized, really.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And one thing that Georgina mentioned earlier, so this is probably the perfect time to remind everyone that this homecoming, we want to celebrate those graduates of 2020 and 2021. We've invited them all back. We're going to really roll out the red carpet for them when they come to the alumni tent. And we want to do something a little fun too. Not sure how we're going to pull this off, but we're going to promote it over the next few days. But we want to do a toast to the graduates. And what we want to see are photos, like you taking a picture wherever you are. And Laura, if you could maybe put in the comment section what the hashtag is supposed to be. But the idea is that we're just going to toast to the students, toast to the graduates, and just celebrate everybody being back on the saddle with the Wild Wild Western. That's the whole purpose of this theme this year. So we want to celebrate them. And again, we're not out of the woods yet. but knowing that we're starting to get there and people are starting to feel really good about it, we just want to just enjoy it just for a moment. Because again, it's been tough. Even I was talking to Dion, one of my fraternity brothers, who's a middle school principal or elementary principal down in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was saying that this fall semester feels like the students have already gotten that spring-itis. Remember how it was like March, April, where you were ready to be done with school? That actually was what they were experiencing from their kids in the early months of the fall, because they're just not used to being in school and all day for that matter. So definitely an opportunity for us to celebrate and give them WKU spirit, the love that we all got when we came back for homecoming, especially the first year or two where we felt like we were grown. Y'all remember that?
Right.
So
I'm not going to tell you what I was doing when I thought it was wrong.
Well, this has been absolutely wonderful.
Absolutely.
I'm glad these decades kicked this off, because I don't think those 90s, 2000s, 2020s are going to hold a candle to this crowd. So thank you, Kevin Mays, Todd Cheever, Keith Mcgregory, Reggie Glass, as always. Thank you, sir, for being present. And again, my partner, Cedric Newborn, and we would be remiss if we left out Miss Laura Smith, who keeps us all on task. But at the end of the day, in whatever capacity, please enjoy Homecoming Wild Wild Western 2021. And a shout out to the WKU Alumni Association. Go Tops.
Go Tops.
Go Tops.
Go Tops.